Hi friends, this is Caitlin. Today we're going to be jumping right into a Copic Airbrush scene card. This is my first time ever using this system, as you can tell from these splotches that are appearing on the card. I asked for this airbrush system for Christmas last year, so I have like the Copic handle part and the tubes, and then I also got a small air compressor from Amazon. I'll have everything linked down below in case you're interested in trying it out. But I didn't do any research on how to use this. I didn't watch anybody else use it because I wanted to see how kind of user friendly it was going to be. And if you've been here before, you might know that I do not enjoy coloring skies at all with any kind of marker. If I had it my way, I would ink blend or now airbrush every sky. And the reason I think the airbrush is great is because I've already invested all of this money into my Copics. And I have so many colors. I have way more colors of markers than I do ink pads. So being able to kind of use my Copics for even more just means that I'm getting even more out of the money I invested, right? So to create this sky, I started out with some very soft BV markers right around the moon. I have everything else on my scene masked off with some full stick Post-its and my Tim Holtz moon masks. Then I went in with some darker medium BVs. I grabbed the V99, and then now this last step is I'm going in with black right around the edges. And you can see I kind of alternate between like circular motions and kind of just swiping back and forth. I wanted the sky to look a little cloudy and misty, so that's why I did the circles. When we go down to do the ground in a minute, I'll do more of the side to side, and you'll get to see kind of the difference that creates. Before I remove my masks, I went in with my Dr. P.H. Martin's white, bleed proof white, and added some stars to my little night sky. I gave that a minute to kind of dry once I took the masks off before I went in to do the ground. But the cool thing was, because I'm airbrushing, I didn't even end up masking the upper part of the sky because the Copics wouldn't interfere with each other. For the moon, I didn't want it to be a stark white, so I did go in with a little bit of this light yellow marker over the blank moon first. Then I added in the second piece of that Tim Holtz moon mask stencil and just kind of held that in place. It wasn't quite golden enough, so I brought in a little bit of my YO2 and then also ran a little extra of that over everything to blend it out just a little bit. And now is the wonderful, exciting time when we take off the bottom pieces. I did leave the bottom mask on my witch. This is one of the new stamps from Stamping Bella. This is Witch Sista with an H at the end. Number 1, she's supposed to look like Winifred Sanderson. She's inspired by, we'll say. So yeah, to do the ground, I brought in some brown markers, and this is where I'm saying you can see I'm going more side to side than circular. I also brought in some yellow and some green along the upper half. I would lay down that YO2 yellow first, just to kind of give the look of that moonlight kind of reflecting off of the top edge of our landscape, and then brought in that I believe it's 99, maybe 97. I'll try to figure out exactly what it was to kind of blend in between. So she's got a little dirt, she's got a little grass, and you can see this is very textured, but I love it. I think, like I said, especially for this kind of scene, that it's really fun. I like the little speckles. I love it for the grass. I think it's perfect. So then once I had my background done, I brought out my other Copics and just started coloring the rest of this normally. I decided to go traditional Winifred for the coloring on this, but you don't have to. You can do, whatever makes you happy. I saw Amy Young from Sweet November Stamps, she colored this up beautifully. She's on the design team for Stamping Bella too. And she just made her like a generic spooky witch, and she looked great. So yeah, I went with the classic kind of green, purple, and a little bit of gold for all of her outfit. And I had a lot of fun kind of emphasizing the folds and ripples in her, it's not a jacket, but this upper part of her dress, and these long tendrils. I'm also going to go back, I'm warning you now, and fill in the like spell magic that's in her hand over there on the left like a zillion times, because I didn't want it to be super bright purple when I started, but then as the rest of the scene came together and everything else is so vibrant and saturated, I just kept kind of tweaking and adding to it. So fair warning, we're going to mess with that throughout the whole thing. But yeah, adding shading under on the inside of each of these ripples in her fabric, as well as kind of on the outside where one layer would be overlapping another. And the tricky part with this that I enjoyed was trying to make sure I'm leaving enough room for the highlight at the bottom of each one. And you can see I broke it up into sections so that it wasn't super overwhelming. I did that left side first and then the right side instead of worrying about doing everything all at once. And let's see, I'm trying to think. I do have another couple. I mean, I think there's like 3 or 4, maybe 3 more Halloween videos coming before the end of this month. And I also want to tell you, if you're watching this close to when it's coming out, that on Sunday the 20th, I'm also going to be having a hop video up for a Sweet November Stamps release. So keep an eye out for that. I will warn you now, it's Christmas. I don't blame you if you want to wait. I am not ready for Christmas, but I love Sweet November Stamps, so I made an exception. But don't be fooled when you see that video go up, because I will have more Halloween coming. It's going to happen. I also have a couple Halloween kind of real-time, slowed down coloring videos up this month. I'm curious if you watch my normal videos, if you're here watching this, if you like having the option to also watch that, or if that's like too slow, if you like the explanation. So let me know down in the comments if you have a strong opinion, or if you like those other videos and you want to see more, let me know so I know to keep making them. All right, so here's where I'm talking about. I started going in with that very light pale purple, but like between the moon and the sky, you really can't see it. So I took a break and switched over to her skin tone, which I'm changing completely from what I normally do. I went in with E74 first, which I don't think I've ever used the 70s until last week's Stamping Bella card, which it was not intentional to use both of them back to back either. But I did like a Mad Scientist card last week, and I used those 70 markers, and they gave such a cool kind of spooky undertone. So I didn't want her to be as gray. So I brought in that E00, and we're going to bring in some blush and some E000 right through the center. But they're really fun for that more dramatic shadow, and way more spooky toned, in my opinion, than like an E04 that I would normally be drawn to. For their eyes, I always add some super light BV and B markers, just as like a little C shape on one side. That gives it that kind of glossy look. And I had so much fun coloring her hair. It was so cute. I love all of the texture that's already added in here for us. So I let that kind of inspire me, and I ended up going in and just adding all of these little kind of swoopy spirals, adding more curl and texture, just kind of following the general shapes that were already here so that everything kind of wraps into itself, if that makes sense. Like I tried to do my squiggles in the same direction of what I was coloring against. So if the line curved to the left, my squiggles curved to the left. So then I went in with my one shade lighter, which is my YR09. And I did try to add a little more contrast than normal, a little bit extra depth. My YR09 is usually my darkest orange. So I brought in those E markers, that darker brown, as my base. Because I mean, she's facing away from the moon, so she would be more in shadow. So it made sense for her coloring to be a little darker than normal. So my YR68 became my highlight, which usually it's the middle color. And then we're also going to go back in with our darker shade to re-emphasize some of that texture that got washed out or neutralized with the lighter shades kind of layering on top. So here I'm going in with that E19 again and really emphasizing the shadow between each layer and just kind of separating and piecing out her hair so it doesn't look flat. This is where I'm bringing in more purple, right? We're jumping all the way to V09 for her kind of magic, and I wanted it to kind of spread out around her hand and not just look like it's right in front of the moon. So I started playing with a little bit of that, and I'm using that same V09 marker to shade the under part of her dress. So all of that shadow is going to go from where our green layer is kind of overlapping that skirt, and then right under the book. And then around the bottom, there's already some artist drawn lines there for us showing where the kind of puddling of her skirt is creating shadows as well. So just kind of emphasizing those, pulling that color up. We started with that V09 and then we jumped over to that V17. So we're just bringing those markers down towards the middle, and then I'm going to go over kind of overlapping in both directions with my V15. That has a little bit more of a pink undertone to it and is going to help to kind of punch up that vibrancy as well. I really love how those three markers kind of play together. I wasn't sure what to do for her shoes. I'm pretty sure her shoes in the movie are like black, but I knew I was going to color the book brown, so I just went with the same brown tones as for the for her feet / boots. So going in with my E kind of teen markers and just shading in between. For the book, I decided to go in with some W markers, some warm grays, to add some texture to the pages. And then I went silver for the clasps, which are pretty tiny, but you might not know. I don't think I've said it, but Hocus Pocus is one of my favorite movies of all time, to the point that like people won't watch it with me because I know every single word and I have a very hard time restraining myself. I know it's terrible. So like I will not watch it sometimes if other people are watching it so that I like won't be annoying. So I added my scene. I die cut it with the watercolor kind of stack dies from My Favorite Things. I love the edge on this. I think it's perfect for like whimsical Halloween or even like Christmas list style images. They're just so fun. So I die cut that and added it to a black base. And then I went in with this stamp from Honeybee Stamps that says, "I put a spell on you," because it's perfect. And I inked that up with my Pink and Main watermark and embossing ink. Then I added this beautiful new Tiger Lily glitter embossing powder and used the coordinating die to trim it out. And then popped it up onto my card with some foam for a little hint of dimension, and that's going to help cover up to where some of my airbrush ink got under that moon mask, because I had no idea what I was doing with that first spray and it kind of splashed back a little bit. So I'm using it to cover that up. I fiddled a little and then committed to that placement, and I'm telling you, you're going to see a lot more airbrush, I think, in our future, because I love how this turned out. So if you've been considering it, I hope this takes some of the fear out for you. But yeah, I hope that you have an amazing weekend. I'll see you guys back here on Sunday or very soon. And until next time, happy crafting.